Hey, fifth graders, how's it going? Hopefully the test and Master Connect went well for you. We're here kicking off Chapter 6, which is going to be focused on area. And this is just stuff that we have had in previous grades that we're just trying to freshen our memories with so that we can be successful with this unit. And so with area, many times like you see in this illustration here, comparing things, and sometimes you want to find out how much something is covering, and like these people are asking, who took the largest piece? And we use area to figure that out. And so when it comes to this particular unit, we're going to be focusing on these lessons here, such as finding area of a rectangle. This part here where it says fractional sides, we will not be covering this part here. So don't worry about multiplying by fractions. This is just going to be finding area with whole fractions, but you will see it in your journal, you will see it in your textbook, but we won't be covering the fractional part of it. But we will be focusing on finding area of different shapes. So as you see in this one here, base and height, what does that mean for a triangle? And then using that base and height of a triangle to help you find the area of a triangle. Okay, so like we have the big idea here. Base and height are measurements that are used to find area of a triangle. So to start off with, we're just, like I said, refreshing our knowledge of what we've had from previous grades. Here you see an example of forming angles. And when I'm forming an angle, we are forming these rays, ED. This is a ray because there's a endpoint there with the arrow coming out the end, so that makes that a ray. Two rays form an angle, and here we have angle DEF, and the key to this is this vertex right here. And hopefully from your vocabulary you've reviewed that where two lines come together is a vertex, and this would be vertex E, and because it's in the middle, E has to be in the middle. I could name this angle FED because I could swap around the letters, but I have to have E in the middle because it is the vertex. Okay, so now that you've had a little refresher as far as how to name angles, let's make sure you remember the type of angles. Before I reveal this, could you name the three type of angles? First, we would have the acute angle, which is anything less than 90 degrees. Then after that, we have a right angle, which would give you 90 degrees exactly, and an obtuse angle, which is anything greater than 90. So now that you remember as far as how to name the angles, as well as what kind of angles there are, your next step here would be to name this angle, as well as let's say what kind of angle this is. So be prepared for two questions that are going to pop up in this video. The video will pause, and then after you put in your answer, the video will resume. So hopefully you put in your answer and you recognize that you could have put angle, and this is the symbol for angle, angle TUV. You could have also said angle VUT, but also recognizing why the letter U would be in the middle. Now as far as what kind of angle this is, because a right angle forms a perpendicular, like the two lines are exactly perpendicular, and you should remember from your vocabulary as far as what means perpendicular, but that angle forms 90-degree angle. This looks like it would be more than that 90-degree angle, so this would be an obtuse angle. Alright, so next type of angle would be this. Same deal, you're going to put your answer in, then I'll resume the video. Okay, this angle is called angle DEF. You could have also had angle FED. Now, you could have said, this seems like it forms a right angle, and you could have said right, but if you felt like, this seems like it's a little less than right, I would have also taken acute, meaning that it's less than 90 degrees. Okay? Now, lastly, this is your last angle that you're going to be answering. What kind of angle would you say is D? Key there that I pointed out as far as this little box that forms, you just say that angle D equals 90 degrees, which is the same as saying it is a right angle. So now that we have our angles down, we can start looking at, like I mentioned earlier from the vocabulary, perpendicular. We have lines here, and lines are different than rays, and in the sense that, you know, there's one endpoint, one goes on forever. These two line segments, because segments mean that they end, they don't go on forever, whereas if it was just a line, you would see arrows at the end. But this doesn't have an arrow, so it's not a line, it's just called a line segment. And so when it comes to these two lines that are here, there we go, we are going to be recognizing they're perpendicular because you can form a 90-degree angle when the two lines cross. Okay? And the other piece is kind of recognizing when you look at how this sheet, if this were a sheet of paper, and how it's divided across, it is exactly the same as it is the other side. You have equal cuts on both sides, so this would be perpendicular. Now, looking at these two, A or B, which one's perpendicular and which one isn't, and think about why. The video is going to pause again and go forward. So after you've put in your answer, you should be able to say that the two lines formed a right angle and that they are equally cut, meaning the exact same that I see on this side of the squares is the same on this side of the squares, where this one here is not equally cut, because if I look at this side of the squares, this is not the same as this side because there's less. There's that angle that is cutting into these sides, and so I do not have a 90-degree angle. In fact, I have an obtuse here and I have an acute angle here. Okay. Next piece here is we're looking at area. Area, essentially, we're just saying that it's covering it's covering a certain part of a shape. So these shapes that you see here, this is all considered the area of this particular shape, and so far with the pink and yellow. Now, since you've looked at shapes before in 3rd and 4th grade, you had been able before to count squares, and so if each of these sides is 1 centimeter, this is 1 centimeter, or I could say this is 1 square centimeter. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 square centimeters for that particular shape. But as you've gone forward, you know that there is a different approach that we can do to rectangles. But before we do, take a look at this. Put in what you think is the answer for this particular shape. And now that you're back after putting your answer in, recognizing that I could count, so recognizing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 16, or I could also say, hey, this side is 4, and this side is 4, and I know that 4 times 4 would give me 16, and because these are centimeters, and they're square centimeters, I could also put down 16 centimeters squared, but you can also put down, as far as what you would type in, 16 SQ for square, and then CM for centimeters. So for the next problem, put it in this for what you would type. Okay, SQ CM for square centimeters. Now this one is in inches. Make sure you're looking at the unit. What would you put down for the answer for this, finding the area of this shape? Now that you're back, recognizing once again I could count, I could see that there's 6, but also recognize that I could do the 2 times 3. These are skills you've had from 3rd and 4th grade, where if I have the 2 times 3, they give me 6. And because it's inches, it is inches squared, or I could put in the same thing as square inches. All right, so now that we've gone through as far as reviewing all those pieces that lead up to finding area, now we don't actually have the lines inside of here to help us find what that area is. Instead, we go off of the formula of recognizing that back here, like I could just take the sides and times them out to find out how many squares are on the inside. I'm going to do the same for here. So I'd have 4 times 4 to give me that 16, and then don't forget that when it comes to the centimeters, it would be square centimeters. Now over here, this isn't a square, this is a rectangle. The same still applies, where I can do area equals length times width. Length is 6, 3 is the width, multiply the 2, I would be able to fit 18 equal squares into this shape here to be able to get the area of it of 18 square inches. So now that you've got that refresher as far as how to find area, go into here as far as put in what you believe the answer would be. Now that you're back, recognizing that 6 times 6, you think it's just 36 square inches, but I want you to understand where the square inches also comes from. Because if I do 6 times inches, that's 6 inches, and then that's also multiplying 6 times inches. So I could rearrange these pieces here so that the 6's go together and the inches go together to show that 6 times 6 does give me that 36. And then here, because I have 2 of those inches, remember our exponent, that little 2, that's where that little 2 comes from. Okay? So over here, this little 2 is simply because there's 2 of those inches that are being multiplied together to give you square inches. And as you type it in, you can put over here 36 SQ square inches. All right? How about this one? What would you put in? Hopefully you recognize that I can do 3 centimeters times 3 centimeters. We've talked about how we could rearrange it so it's 3 times 3, but also centimeters times centimeters to give me 9 square centimeters. 9 SQ, 9 square centimeters. All right, what would you do for this one? Here you are. This is what your answer would be because I'm taking 4 times that 8 to get 32. The centimeters are being multiplied. That's where the little 2 comes from. 32 centimeters squared, or the same thing, 32 square centimeters. And our last one that we're going to be looking at, what would you put for this? And 30 square feet. So now that you've had this review of area and things that we've done in the past, you're either going to go on to iExcel if you had anything from Master Connect that showed that you just need a little bit of practice of review for that, or you can go back to Quizlet to strengthen up that vocabulary that we're going to be exploring with this particular unit.